Hi, I'm Fleeks, creator of the Spell Chess Opening Explorer. If you've tried the Spell Chess variant, it's possible that you've fallen into some opening trap because there are a lot of them, and maybe you've got frustrated and wondered, how am I supposed to deal with this? Well, this resource I've created can show you what moves work in practice and how the strongest players handle the opening. You can get here by typing spellchess.win into your web browser. Now let me be clear. This is a resource for studying purposes only. You're not allowed to use this or any external resource during an actual game. That would be cheating. There have been multiple accounts closed in connection with this site, so please don't be next. If you've used an Opening Explorer for regular chess, then this works very much similarly. What we have here is, of course, the starting position, and in the lower right, we see what moves are often played from the starting position in a certain subset of games. So the move list is started by e4. 84% of expert games open with the king's pawn, and we can see that white wins about 55% of the time, and black wins about 43% of the time. e4, turns out, is by far the most common way to begin a strong game of spell chess. e3 also sometimes a move, but doesn't work out quite so well based on the win rate for white. That's declined to 48%. If we put a move on the board, let's say we go ahead with e4, we get the list of moves that are often played from this position. So now it's black to move. See the black mark in the upper left. And the majority move here by quite a bit is c6, which is maybe a new insight for you. A lot of beginners are going to play e5, and while this can work, as you can see here, 11% of expert games, if you don't know what you're doing, you can get in a bit of trouble. And there are good reasons that many experts will play c6. And then from here you can see there's a collection of different moves with a range of different win rates. We can back up and put a different move on the board. Let's say black plays e5, which is a very common move, especially at the lower levels. Then we're starting to get some more color in the move list here. There's Fs and Js, they're blue and green. The F indicates a freeze move, and the square range here is the region of pieces, not necessarily squares, because there can be equivalent freezes. Like this, for example, is completely equivalent to that. Same set of black pieces frozen. So about a third of the time from this position, we're going to see white freeze somewhere up here and play bishop b5. We can also just click and put it directly on the board for us. And already we can see that there's very few moves that are good for black here. Black can either bring the bishop out and counter freeze, and then you get a pretty symmetrical game. We can also back up a bit, and you can bring the king out if you know what you're doing. But notice how there's really not a lot of other moves. Something I see a lot at the lower levels is that they notice the bishop is threatening to jump the d-pawn and take the king. And so they freeze it, and they attack it. And we can see that we've kind of gone off path when it comes to expert games. Very, very few expert games go into this variation because it is bad. And there's a couple ways you can explore bad things if for some reason you'd like to. You can switch to the All tab, which shows games from the entire pool, so no rating restrictions. And with this, you do have to take into account that the lower rated players are not necessarily going to find the best follow-ups. So what you can do instead is stay on the rating filter and instead ask, how do experts exploit this against the pool of everyone? So we're playing, let's say we're playing white here. I'm going to keep experts as white, and instead of focusing on games between two 2,000 plus players, we're going to have an expert on white versus anyone. And we confirm here, this has happened many, many, many times in the database, that queen h5 is just completely crushing. This is what I call the scissor attack. Got the sort of two blades of a scissor, in my opinion anyway. And no matter what black does, they are toast. because if you block either the queen or the bishop, the other's going to jump. If you take either the queen or the bishop, again, other's going to jump the d or f pawn. And if you push the king up, then you can see queen takes e5, and there is nothing to do but jump and block, and then the king hangs to the jump. Now, most people have a lot more trouble handling the black pieces in spell chess than white. So how about we clear all this out, and let me put the rating filter back, and let's flip the board around using the button on the left, and let's just see how strong players are likely to play. So again, e4 and c6 is what I would recommend and is the most common expert move. And again, there's lots of different moves, so you'll probably want to be prepared for the top few that are good. So bishop c4, for example, is a very active move. And if we flip back for a moment, see that it doesn't actually have the highest win rate, even though it is probably the most aggressive. So it is worthwhile to explore how to refute this. And it turns out you pretty much always want to play e6. Anything else, you get into quite a bit of trouble, rather low win rate for black. And you can click through that branch and see how exactly that goes wrong if you're curious. But we get e6 most of the time. And then you see a handful of moves. Black is most pressured, it seems, by knight f3. And the plurality move, definitely queen c7. And after knight c3, you've got to play a very important move in order to not get into some trouble, b5. And from here you have a game. Now, of course, as you get deeper and deeper into the opening, there's going to be fewer and fewer games. And when the number of games in each branch gets pretty low, you need to take the win rates with a grain of salt because of just statistical variation. And so once you've analyzed a given line to your satisfaction, you can back up and put a different move on the board. So let's say instead of knight f3, white played c3. Now again, queen c7 seems to be a common move, but you can also play b5 here, and that is also fine. If you decide you actually want to go back to the line you were previously analyzing, you just click undo new line, and we've got our knight f3, queen c7 line back up. Just as the last note about the rating tab, you can filter to master games, which are even higher rated and rarefied, but the trade-off here is that there's going to be fewer games, so you're going to have less information to work with. Now I've switched to the player filter. This allows you to look for games that are involving a specific player, as one might imagine. This is useful if you're going to prepare against them for a match, say in the World Championship. Let's say you're curious what I play with the white pieces. So we can enter my username here, and by default it's going to show you the games I had on whoever is to move. So at first it'll be white, so after we put the first move on the board, which is e4, you can see that I always play e4, more or less. And now it's going to show you what I play as black. If that's not what you're interested in, maybe you want to see what I usually encounter rather than what I usually play, or maybe you're interested in whether I have encountered some tricky line before. You can set a specific color. So we're wondering what I play as white. And now you might be wondering, whoa, why has all this become white wins? Well, it's because I'm pretty good, if I do say so myself. And if you look for games versus anyone, well, I'm very likely to win. So you probably want to filter against strong players if you are, especially if you're also a strong player. So this is what I play, or I encounter from other strong players. People usually play c6 against me, and this works rather well for black. As you can tell from the lower rows, the ones who attempt e5 and e6, white has a pretty good win rate because I know all kinds of tricks, which in fact I learned from studying this explorer, partially at least. So probably want to play c6 in order to not fall to my traps. And then you'll notice that I am majority a d4 player. And we can actually compare this to the rating tab and see that this is a little bit of a divergence. So it's more common for white to play c3, but I'm a d4 player, and if you're prepping against me, well, that's probably useful information. I'll just show you one more feature before we wrap up. Since, of course, you can't use this during a game, when you go to play a game, you might forget what you were supposed to do, or maybe you encounter something new. And so after the game, you want to learn what went wrong, what were you supposed to do. So I've got a feature that makes it easy for you to pull in a game you just played. Let's switch to the chess.com page for a game. This is one that I lost with the white pieces. And so let's say I just played this and I want to look at it in my Explorer. Chess.com adds this PGN4 tab only after the game, and this is a computer readable representation of the game. We can copy it here using the copy button, and then we switch back to my database and we load the PGN4. Paste it right here, press load, and here are all the moves. Now I was white, so let's flip it around and have a look at the white pieces. You can use the arrow keys to navigate, or you can click through the move list, whichever you like. So e4 is all very normal. My opponent played e6, and I went for this attack because I think it's fun. And my opponent played king e7, which is normal. There's a couple different moves, d4, knight f3. I went for knight f3 in this game, which has pretty decent win rate for white. Opponent did a very normal thing, preventing the bishop from covering the e8 square with the jump. I had to fall back. Now here, we can see that things are starting to not have such a big advantage for white. So bishop c4 was kind of passive. It's much more active and successful in practice, even in high-level games, for the queen e2 move to keep the pressure on. Now you might think, wait a minute, aren't you just blundering the bishop? Well, there is a trick here, which you can see has actually happened 21 times, it seems. If black takes, then after knight d5 check, black is in very serious trouble with the king on the run, or there's actually some checkmate trap here. So what we've learned is that I probably should have played queen to e2 in order to keep some good winning chances alive. So let's undo that new line and go back to where the game really proceeded. Bishop c4, after king e8, I played the pretty slow move knight f3, and now there's only very few games in the database here, but we can already see white has insufficient compensation for the freeze, and this is just too passive. So what I learned there is I should have played queen e2 to keep the pressure on. I think that demonstrates the Explorer. I hope this was useful to you. I hope spellchess.win helps you win at spell chess. Let me know in the comments if you discovered anything especially interesting in the database, or if you have any questions. Until next time, though, bye for now.